Let's get straight to it. Number 10. Castor beans. The castor oil plant produces beans packed with a protein called ricin, and health agencies list it among the most potent naturally occurring toxins ever identified. That bottle of castor oil sitting next to your other home remedies comes from one of the most lethal seeds on the planet. It's so effective that in 1978, a Bulgarian dissident named Georgy Markov was assassinated in broad daylight on a London street using an umbrella modified to inject a tiny ricin pellet into his leg. He died 3 days later, and the case remains one of the most infamous poisoning stories in modern history. Here's the twist, though. The castor oil sitting in your bathroom is completely safe. Commercial extraction uses heat and pressure that destroys the ricin during processing, which is exactly why the oil itself has been used for centuries without issue. The danger only shows up if you actually chew and swallow the raw beans themselves. As few as 4 to 8 properly chewed castor beans can be lethal to an adult, fewer for a child, and poison control centers regularly field calls about kids finding the plant spiky, exotic-looking seed pods in ornamental gardens, since it's a popular landscaping plant in warmer climates. The oil is safe. The bean it came from very much isn't. Number 9. Star fruit. Star fruit shows up sliced into fancy fruit salads and cocktail garnishes constantly, and for the vast majority of people, it's completely harmless, maybe causing a stray case of hiccups at worst. But here's the part almost nobody knows. For a specific group of people, this tropical garnish can quietly target their kidneys. The fruit contains a compound called caramboxin along with unusually high levels of oxalic acid, and for anyone with reduced kidney function, that combination becomes genuinely dangerous. Healthy kidneys filter these compounds out efficiently, but damaged or weakened kidneys can't clear them fast enough, allowing the toxin to build up in the bloodstream and cross into the nervous system. Case reports from nephrology journals in Brazil and Taiwan, where star fruit is widely consumed, document patients with kidney disease developing confusion, seizures, and in severe documented cases, death, sometimes after eating just a single fruit or drinking a small amount of juice. It's serious enough that kidney foundations specifically instruct dialysis patients to avoid star fruit entirely, no exceptions, while doctors reassure everyone else that a slice in their fruit salad is perfectly fine. Number 8. Ackee. Ackee is the key ingredient in Jamaica's national dish, ackee and saltfish, and when it's properly ripened and prepared, it's completely safe and genuinely beloved across the Caribbean. But this national fruit used to poison an entire country, and the danger is in the unripe fruit. Before an ackee pod naturally splits open on the tree, it contains a toxin called hypoglycin A, which blocks the body's ability to produce glucose and can trigger sudden, severe hypoglycemia. Historically, this caused a documented illness so common it earned its own medical name, Jamaican vomiting sickness, and outbreaks were serious enough that researchers spent years isolating the exact compound responsible. The danger was significant enough that for decades, the United States FDA restricted the import of fresh ackee altogether, only permitting canned ackee that had already been properly processed, de-iced, and confirmed ripe. The rule today is simple. Only pods that have opened naturally on their own are safe to eat, and even then, the pink membrane and black seeds inside get removed before cooking. Force one open early, and you're gambling with a toxin that can drop your blood sugar to a dangerous level within hours. Number 7. Black licorice. Black licorice has been around for centuries, and in small occasional amounts, it's harmless. But this candy quietly stopped a man's heart, and the danger is in the compound glycyrrhizin, extracted from real licorice root, which causes the body to lose potassium and retain sodium when eaten in large amounts over a sustained period. In 2020, a case published in a major medical journal detailed a Massachusetts man in his 50s who had been eating roughly 1.5 bags of black licorice candy every day for several weeks. His potassium levels dropped so severely that his heart went into a fatal arrhythmia, and he collapsed and died. The FDA responded with a direct public warning, stating that eating more than 2 ounces of black licorice daily for at least 2 weeks, especially for anyone over 40, could trigger dangerous heart problems. Here's the part that actually matters for grocery shopping. Most licorice-flavored candy sold in the U.S. doesn't contain real licorice root at all. It's just anise flavoring imitating the taste. The real danger only applies to candy specifically listing licorice extract or glycyrrhizin on the label. But for the people eating that version daily, the FDA's warning is not an exaggeration. Number 6. Cinnamon. Most cinnamon sold in American grocery stores isn't the expensive Ceylon variety. It's the cheaper cassia type, and cassia cinnamon contains a compound called coumarin, which in high doses can cause liver damage. And this spice has 2 completely separate ways to hurt you. European food safety regulators have set specific daily intake limits because of this exact concern, especially for people taking cinnamon supplements in concentrated doses rather than just sprinkling it on toast. But cinnamon's second danger has nothing to do with chemistry and everything to do with a viral trend. The so-called cinnamon challenge, attempting to swallow a spoonful of dry cinnamon powder without water, spread widely online and sent a documented wave of people to emergency rooms. The fine, dry powder isn't meant to be inhaled or swallowed in bulk, and it can scorch and inflame lung tissue, trigger severe choking, and in some tract cases, cause lasting respiratory damage. Poison control centers across the country issued public warnings, specifically referencing the trend after seeing a real, measurable spike in related emergency calls. One spice, two entirely unrelated ways to end up in urgent care. Number 5. Bitter almonds. Regular almonds sold in every grocery store are completely safe, but there's a genetically distinct variety called bitter almonds that carries a far higher concentration of amygdalin, the same cyanide-releasing compound found in trace amounts in apple seeds, except at a level that's genuinely dangerous. This is the version you're not allowed to buy raw. When chewed and digested, that compound converts into actual cyanide inside the body. Traditionally, bitter almonds were used in tiny, carefully controlled amounts to flavor certain liqueurs and baked goods, since heat destroys much of the toxic compound during processing. But raw bitter almonds are banned from retail sale in the United States specifically because of poisoning risk, meaning only the sweet variety is legally sold whole in stores. As few as 7 to 10 raw bitter almonds have been documented to cause serious poisoning in a child, with several dozen representing a potentially lethal dose for an adult. In regions where bitter almond trees still grow wild alongside sweet ones, poison control centers continue to log cases of people mistaking one for the other. Number 4. Fugu. Pufferfish, served in Japan as fugu, contains a toxin called tetrodotoxin concentrated in the liver, ovaries, and skin, and it's estimated to be roughly 1,200 times more potent than cyanide by weight. This is the delicacy people pay hundreds of dollars specifically to survive. There is no known antidote. The toxin causes progressive paralysis while the person often remains fully conscious the entire time, aware of what's happening as their body shuts down. Because of the severity of the risk, Japan requires any chef preparing fugu commercially to complete years of specific licensed training and pass both rigorous written and practical exams before they're legally permitted to serve it. The country's health ministry tracks fugu-related poisoning incidents every year, and the data consistently shows that most fatal cases don't happen in licensed restaurants at all. They happen when amateur fishermen catch their own pufferfish and attempt to clean and prepare it themselves at home, skipping the exact training that licensed chefs spend years mastering. Number 3. Grapefruit. Unlike everything else on this list, grapefruit isn't actually poisonous, which makes what it does even stranger. It contains compounds called furanocoumarins that block a specific enzyme in your intestines called CYP3A4, an enzyme responsible for breaking down roughly half of all common prescription medications before they fully enter your bloodstream. This is the healthy fruit doctors specifically tell certain patients to avoid. Block that enzyme, and a normal, correctly prescribed dose of certain medications can suddenly hit your system at a far higher concentration than intended, essentially turning a safe dose into an accidental overdose. Researchers stumbled onto this discovery completely by accident back in 1989, while studying an entirely unrelated interaction between grapefruit juice and alcohol. The interaction has since been studied extensively enough that the FDA now requires many prescription labels, covering certain statins, blood pressure medications, and immune suppressants, to carry a direct warning telling patients to avoid grapefruit entirely while taking them. Sometimes the deadliest combination isn't a poison at all. It's a completely healthy food paired with the wrong prescription bottle. Number 2. Wild mushrooms. Foraging has surged in popularity in recent years, and while most wild mushroom species are perfectly safe, the deathcap mushroom looks deceptively similar to several edible varieties foraged around the world. This is where one wrong guess in the forest can be fatal days later. It contains compounds called amatoxins that specifically target the liver, and the way it attacks is part of what makes it so dangerous. Symptoms don't show up immediately. They typically start 6 to 12 hours after eating, mimicking a normal stomach bug, nausea, cramping, vomiting. Then, disturbingly, the symptoms seem to improve for a day or two, giving a false sense of recovery, right before liver failure sets in rapidly around day 3 to 5. According to global poison control data, the death cap is responsible for the majority of fatal mushroom poisonings worldwide, and there's no simple, reliable visual trick to identify it in the field. Mycological societies drill one rule into every forager: when in doubt, throw it out, because unlike several toxins on this list, amatoxins survive cooking completely. Heat does absolutely nothing to neutralize them. Number 1. Raw sprouts. Alfalfa, bean, and clover sprouts get added to salads and sandwiches specifically because they're seen as one of the healthiest things you can eat. This is the healthy salad topping with more documented outbreaks than almost anything else in the produce aisle. But sprouts grow in warm, humid conditions, and that's the exact environment bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli thrive in. Unlike most vegetables, sprouts are almost always eaten completely raw, which means there's no cooking step to kill off any contamination that made it into the seed before it even sprouted. The CDC has tracked dozens of documented multi-state sprout-related outbreaks over the past few decades alone, and specifically recommends that children, pregnant women, older adults, and anyone with a weakened immune system avoid raw sprouts entirely, cooking them thoroughly if they're eaten at all. It's the perfect closer for a list like this, because every single item before it sounded exotic, dangerous, or at least a little suspicious on its own. This one is the plain, boring, virtuous-looking pile of green threads sitting on top of your sandwich, quietly responsible for more documented illness outbreaks than most of the genuinely poisonous-sounding foods on this entire list combined. That's it for this video. More on the way. Subscribe to catch them.